Steve, what a pleasure. We've known each other 11 years now. We just talked about that. Man, that's amazing.
Yeah, a lot has happened in 11 years.
Yes, a lot's happened. We've had pandemics, we've had recessions, we've had all kinds of things. So
Challenges in the supply chain.
that doesn't change, though.
Yeah.
Supply chain challenges always exist.
Always, yeah, but it seems like it always gets accentuated. Like during the pandemic, it was like everybody became a supply chain expert because, like, oh yeah, I read an article in the Wall Street Journal, all of a sudden I became an expert. And I remember that going through that. I'm like, well, there's a lot more to supply chain than just, you know, cargo ships being stuck out on the ocean outside of the LA port. So there's a lot to know. We all can be experts at one point in time, but it's really important for us to, always know the basics first before we start, pronouncing that we got the latest and greatest ideas.
Right.
So
microphone good? Can you hear it? Okay, good.
Cool.
So you speak so comfortably about supply chain, but let's just be clear. You're a CFO. You're a financial guy.
Yeah.
Like you're a numbers guy.
I'm a numbers guy.
But yet you have such a passion for supply chain. Where did that come from?
That comes from working in the manufacturing, working in industrial manufacturing, commercial manufacturing, where it becomes really mission critical to make sure you got the right parts in at the right time. You don't want to overstock. And that's just not to make sure that your customers are happy or whoever you're supplying is happy. It's to make sure that you have your dollars invested the best way. We don't want to be foolish and, not get the right parts on the shelf and also on the flip side, we don't want to be foolish and just buy as much as we can and put on the shelf because, one thing in business, it's true across all businesses, is you only have a finite amount of cash to work with or a finite amount of credit to work with. And as times go on, the stockholders, board of directors are always demanding that you produce more with less. And that includes producing more equipment without the bigger working capital investments. So as a finance guy, supply chain fits right into my wheelhouse. I have a passion to understand it, to make the best decisions, not the best financial decisions sometimes, because, as a finance guy, I don't want to spend money. Money is precious to me, but I have to understand that you have to spend the right amount of money at the right amount at the right time.
Yeah, but it feels like there's a deeper reason. Do you have like a hidden passion for the movement of product, or is it like do you just like seeing machines create things? Yeah.
I've always had a passion or enjoyment of working in the manufacturing industry, watching guys take a handful of pieces, put it together, you create an assembly, the assembly gets assembled to something else, and next thing you know, 40 hours later, this machine rolls down the manufacturing aisle. And I realized that just does not just happen just with magic. You have to have everybody pulling on the rope at the same time, whether if it's purchasing or the sales team or the accounting team or the production manager, the production planner. Everybody's got to be focused and working at the same time. And to get that, to orchestrate that, and to have that all happen flawlessly, which it doesn't happen flawlessly, but to get it nearly flawless, it takes a lot of effort, a lot of team effort. And I really enjoy that aspect of getting everybody to work together. The reward of everything, the reward of just not only getting the project done, but to getting the project done the way that we planned it. We planned it out. We executed on that plan and we pulled it off. And to me, that's, ringing a bell saying, yeah, we did a great job.
And then you do that 5,000 times over and over and over
Start
again.
over again and you do it again. Unfortunately, there is no finish line.
Yeah.
Finish line would be retirement for me, but, but for when it comes to manufacturing goods, I mean, you never stop and you never stop planning.
So speaking of retirement, before we get into the potential of that, I know you're also a runner.
Yes.
I'm a runner, you're a runner. We love talking about the things we've done in the past. Marathoner in particular.
Yep.
How many marathons have you run?
Over 20 now.
20.
Yeah.
Okay.
And a couple Ironman races.
And a couple Ironman as well. Full Ironman too.
Full, yeah.
Okay, so the real thing. What have you learned from that? And how do you apply that to well, life and business.
Oh, sure. Well, let's talk about an Ironman. When you train for an Ironman, you just don't wake up, today, I'm going to do an Ironman tomorrow. There's no cramming for an Ironman. It's a lot of planning, it's a lot of dedication, and it's a lot of sacrifice to
Mm.
get to the start line. Not even talking about the effort that you have to go through to get to the finish line. So anybody that shows up for an Ironman race that's ready to go, they put in a year's worth of working out and planning to get to that point. And that's an accomplishment in itself. Anybody that shows up, whether if they fail at the swim or in the bike, just showing up
Yeah.
is quite the accomplishment. And I apply that to business is to, make the plan, dedicate yourself. There's going to be sacrifices that are going to be involved with it, and then show up and execute on it.
And that multidiscipline is a big part of it too, right? So as you
Exactly.
train for multi triathlons or in
Yep.
your case, Ironman, right? I mean, you're dealing with 3 disciplines, so
Correct.
3 different body muscles are getting
Yep.
used to it. And with training, you have to often do 2 in the same day, right?
Right. Yeah. The classic brick is what we used to call
That's
it.
right.
I have no idea what they call it
Yeah.
nowadays. But yeah, it's 3 different disciplines, 3 different mindsets.
That's
When
right.
you're in the water, you got a different mindset. Most people in a triathlon, water is like their weakest sport, so they just want to get it done.
Yeah.
Bike is, just another spinning the wheels, just not mashing on it. And then the run, you got to learn just to take what little energy you have left over to push yourself through.
So it teaches you multidiscipline, habits, good habits, I
Correct.
should say.
Yeah.
It teaches you to manage your energy, to prioritize. I mean, you can apply that to family
Anything.
life.
Yep.
You've got 3 kids, as you mentioned earlier. I mean, so
Right.
you've dealt with that for some time now.
Yeah. Yeah. When I started doing it a long time ago, I didn't have any of those skill sets. And it kind of really changed the way my outlook on life is and my focus in life. And I apply that to work and I apply it to everything. I might be the most annoying person at work, just simply I'm the most energetic person at work because I know what I can accomplish when I put my mind to it. And that gives someone a lot of self-confidence.
Yeah, I can see that being a little intimidating for coming from a CFO, right? So
Yeah.
now you know operations, you know supply chain, you have an interest in it, you have this high level of energy and passion,
Yeah.
and you know your numbers. I
Yeah.
mean,
You have to
that puts a
temper
little
it
bit of
for
pressure on
Yeah.
people around you.
You have to temper that a little
Yeah.
bit. It can get, not that it ever got out of hand, but it can be like, oh yeah, I pushed it a little too far. But you don't know how far you can go unless you push yourself as far as you can go.
True. So one of the things that you learn with any form of these long distance kind of endeavors is that systems work well for you.
Mhm.
And technological systems, so you got your Garmin watch can help track and you can get a sense of how you're doing, but also just the way you systematically approach things, kind of the first principles, behaviors, disciplines, and stuff like that. If you translate that to business, what are the kind of the key things that you need to put in place to make sure a business is scalable and, I guess, efficient?
Yeah. First of all, if we're talking in manufacturing, ideally you're at a level in your company that you have a well-established ERP system, whether it be SAP, Oracle, something that can be the one source of truth. So you got to have one place where you can say, okay, this is where we're going to make our decisions. This is where we're going to store our decisions, and this is how we're going to act and then measure ourselves on. It becomes really complicating when you have an organization that's in love with Excel. Nothing's wrong with Excel. It's great for reporting things on, but it's a horrible place to try to make decisions and then file it off somewhere on a server or up on a cloud that only one person has access to it. So my concept is you got to kind of build that framework around what you already have, whatever ERP system you have, and also just use the ERP system way it's designed. There's a lot of customization, but if it says to do it in this sequence, why don't you try it in that sequence first before you decide, yeah, I'm going to shortcut, the system. So that's kind of like the basis of anything when we're on the topic that we're talking
Yeah,
about.
but it makes me think about, again, I'll just keep tying it back to the athletic side of things, right? I mean, if you start running and you don't know what you're doing and you don't understand what it takes to train for a marathon, you could hurt yourself. You could injure yourself,
Absolutely.
or you may be successful, but it may have long-term repercussions down the road, right? Um, how do you translate that back again? Like you mentioned systems, right? So
Sure.
you have an ERP, it's in place. How do you ensure that it's well understood? Otherwise, let me ask you this before we get into how. What's the implications if you do not understand it well?
Sure. So, I mean, when I first started in my training, there was no such things as coaches. I wish I was like, in my prime now, because there's this great thing called coaches. There's a lot of people with a lot of experience, decades of experience. When I got started, there was like maybe most was maybe 10 years. So when you're talking about getting off on the right step is to make sure that you have the proper training, the proper coaching, and that coaching is coming from somebody with a definite knowledge base. There's great coaches out there, and there's so-so coaches out there, and it's great. It's important to select the one that kind of marries up to your goals in life, and that can be applied to athletics, can be applied to business, but it's important to have somebody that could supply you the knowledge to go in the right direction. There's only so far you can go with YouTubes and Chat GPT. It'll get you started, but to solve a problem, whether if it's being in triathlon or Ironman training, or if it's in business, that it gives you like 80% of the information. But the real 20%, that last 20%, that comes from experts.
Yeah, and that really matters, that last 20%.
It's the whole thing.
Right.
It's that could be the last 2 miles of a marathon. You can do all this work and then just be short the last 2 miles. Well, you didn't run a marathon.
Right.
And it's the same thing in business. Somebody delivering you 80% of the answer, that's not the answer, because that last 20% is what's going to get you to your goals.
It kind of reminds me, we talk a lot about the implementation trap where companies implement, let's say, SAP as an example, and it's so focused on the technical measures of success. It went live, people were trained, the data was loaded. We're shipping product. That's kind of the basic level of check.
It's called you didn't go out of business.
That's exactly.
Yeah.
You didn't go out of business.
Yeah,
you spent millions, but you didn't go out of business. But that is like scratching the surface, right?
But
That's barely.
That's a success, but they don't realize what's on the next.
That's right. So they're up and running, they're shipping, as you said, they're staying in business. But the point of any form of technology, as you said earlier, is just if you don't really understand it, it can't take you to the next level. You're going to be stuck.
Right, absolutely. And you'll be stuck with making shortcuts. You'll be stuck making decisions outside of your whatever ERP or whatever system you have. And the worst part about that is that people are making these decisions and they have this cardinal knowledge. And then one day they decide, I'm going to retire early, or I don't want to work here anymore. And instead of having a system that's somewhat by the book, you have this customized process that you have no idea what the answers are.
Right.
And you're kind of beholden to that person to a certain degree.
Right.
And that's a tough thing to be in business today.
Exactly, especially with the disruptions and agility that's required of us as a business nowadays.
Absolutely.
So as a CFO, if you think back of your past when you've dealt with situations where you guys, you didn't know what you didn't know and you were kind of stuck in your ERP environment, like what were the symptoms? Like what were you seeing from your business side, from an inventory, service level, costs, throughput, whatever it is, that really made you realize that there's a fundamental challenge? It's like, so what were some of those business challenges?
Well, it was kind of unique at one point in time when I ventured down this the first time. So we had a certain amount of business that kind of like covered up, hid all of our problems. And I use the analogy of like our business was like a boat going down a river that was, at a high level. No rocks, no nothing. You just shot down the river. But as the business changed And as the water, just like a river, the river level goes down and the rocks start showing up, the boats start hitting the rocks. Well, it's the same thing as our business changed and things slow down. That's when you really start to see, like, okay, we got problems.
Mm.
We got way too many of these parts. Why are we ordering these parts? Well, that's what we always did before. Or when we talk about capacity, that was
Famous last words, right? We've
yeah,
always done it that way.
always done it that way. Capacity, we never had to worry about capacity because we had so many orders. We just kept, just kept building. Well, when things slow down, then you have to start worrying, well, what exactly is my capacity?
Mm.
And how many people do I need to have? And do I need to add another workstation? And to make those decisions, and you don't have the process in place or the understanding of how your company actually works and how everybody communicates, makes it even more difficult to make justifications to say, you could say, okay, I'm going to solve my problem by buying a new CNC machine.
Yeah.
Okay, well, you just dropped 300K on a CNC machine. It didn't solve your problems because that really wasn't a capacity problem. That wasn't a bottleneck.
Right.
Your problems were someplace else, but
Yeah.
you thought it was a CNC machine.
And so that then shows up as excess inventory, maybe missing out on some service levels because
Sure.
we don't have the right product at the right
Right.
time. Now you have to become more agile, and the shop floor is still saying, well, I'm going to keep making because I'm measuring my efficiencies by
Exactly.
how much I can make in my machine. Even if I don't need it, I'm going to keep doing it, right?
Right. Because they could have incentives attached to it.
That's
and
right.
It's just like, oh yeah, we're just going to keep piling them up. Don't worry, we'll eventually sell them. We used to. That's the mindset that can get in when you don't tie in all the components of your operations.
Yeah. So as a CFO, talk to me a bit about how big a deal inventory is for you, because it really differs for different people, right? It depends on some organizations like that are PE owned will say, you can bring your inventories down, it's freeing up cash, I can do something with the cash. Then there's other firms that say, look, I've got big owners, or my shareholders don't care. I just need to make sure I have a 98% service level. Therefore, I'll hold as much inventory as I need. And sometimes we find that those philosophies have a real impact on how the business is run,
Sure.
how efficient it is. From a CFO's perspective, short of it being on a balance sheet, how important is inventory?
Inventory is like this delicate balancing act that you're doing. There's never really an exact right number. Let's just get that clear. It's never like, okay, I want, 4.7 turns or 5.7. Those are goals, those are objectives that you're trying to meet. But really, there is no exact dollar amount that, that's the perfect amount. So you kind of toss the idea out the window that there's no perfect amount. What it is you want to like weigh out the pros and cons. What are you giving up when you do make these decisions? That's the first thing. What am I giving up when I say, hey, I want to pull back inventory, and how much does that go pull away from our service levels? That's it, because it boils down to being more than just dollars for me, because from a holistic point of view, I want to have, it's easy to say, I want to have just the right amount of inventory, just in time inventory to satisfy the needs. But I do need to make the concessions that I can't be watching it like every day.
Right.
I can't take a spike in inventory in one day and just panic off of it. You kind of watch the trends, trend it out, make sure that it's going to what you had planned, and executing to the plan that we are going to experience higher inventory this month, and explain it to the shareholders that we need inventory because you want to have the service levels the following month. We need X this month. So that's why I say there's never like this perfect inventory dollar amount throughout the
I
year.
like that though, because there is such a drive to have a number.
Yeah.
And really, how do you know, right? How do you can do comparisons in industries, but everything is so nuanced that it's really hard to do. I think it comes down to measuring how much excess am I keeping, or dead stock, as we've often
Right.
referred to, in relation to the average. Because if that percentage is high, then typically it means I'm holding more than I need. whatever that number is, right?
Right.
And I think, if you think of it in that way, that's symptomatic of a bad process
Mhm.
or symptomatic of not understanding how the system can help. So I know you guys dealt with this at some point. You had a
Correct.
parent company who said, hey, we need to get our inventories
Right.
down. Yeah, how did you react as a CFO? Like, what's the first thing? Because the typical first thing, if I was in your shoes, I would be like, just stop buying.
Right. So we tried that once. It failed. Then we turned around and we overbought. So it was a yo-yo effect. The solution was to have a better understanding of the system that we had in place at the time, and to apply best practices when it came to executing a plan. Come together with a plan. Have everybody sit down and say, yes, we are going to sell this amount of inventory to this particular group of customers, and then applying some really basic optimization, uh, going back to proper planning, production planning, welding those two together along with our sales and operation planning, kind of gave us, in a very high level, gave us the solution that we needed.
Yeah.
So at the time, our inventory went down, but what went down was not the stuff that we were actually selling, but it was the things that we were just kept on buying and buying because that's what we did before.
Right.
So instead of it just buying and then selling a little bit of it and buying a whole bunch more and watching, if you graphed it out, it would just keep on climbing up. We were able to get it into, if you graphed it out, a heartbeat. You bought some, went down a little
Right.
bit, came up like a perfect heartbeat or a saw blade. And that was pretty much, from my perspective as a CFO, that is the best case scenario when buying inventory. So if everything got bought at once and shot way up, yeah, I'm fine with it because I know it's all go out according to plan, hopefully, if our plan and sales match up. But as you said before, you had to be very nimble to understand that if sales aren't going right,
Yeah.
then you need to take a look at whatever purchasing or buying agreements that you have to make sure that they aren't all of a sudden just drop more inventory on you. So you have to watch your exceptions, that your ERP systems could be shoot out at you because they're telling you to do something.
Yeah.
They're just not a red light or a yellow light on your exceptions just for fun. They're saying, well, if you want to save money or you want to improve your services, respond to these
Right.
exceptions that are coming up.
Yeah, and if I remember correctly, within like 9 or so months, you hit all the targets you needed to.
Yeah.
Talk me through that a little bit.
So it was a very aggressive plan originally. They were looking for this very cut in inventory that within a year, they say they wanted to chop off like 30%, and they wanted it originally in a year, and then we can't do that. So they gave us a year and a half. But as we put in the processes, as we brought in a team that explained how to actually use our ERP system, we were able to rapidly adjust to the new norm, which was watching the exceptions, watching the red lights, putting a plan together, matching capacity to production, getting our capacity in for production and matching our purchasing up to capacity. Within 9 months, we were able to achieve what we thought we couldn't do in 18 months.
That's unbelievable.
Yeah, it was great. I mean,
and you sustained it, right?
we
For
sustained
years.
it for years. What was some of the crazy things we would have is that we would stop buying parts, and we would have our vendors call us up and ask us what was wrong. And we're like, well, yeah, it's because we got a year's supply. We'll talk to you later. At first thought, they think maybe something's wrong with us. We're going out of business, or there was a relationship problem. It's like, no, everything's fine. We just got a lot. And then for me as a CFO, I'm taking money off of a revolver. I'm trying to pay things off. And I had this large balance on this revolver. By the end of that, I was able to pay off the whole revolver, and I had money left over, and I had no idea what to do with. So of course the parent company found something to do with it in the form of a dividend. So we paid out a dividend for the first time.
First time paid out a dividend. So for shareholders,
they were excited.
Got value out of it. Wow.
Everybody got value out of it. from the person as low as, down the purchaser who actually had tools so they could get their job done in the 8-hour day,
Yeah.
all the way up to the shareholder who got their first dividend
Yeah.
payment in decades. So it was a great experience. And then what I took away from that was like, yeah, it's all possible.
Yeah.
If going into it, I'm like, I don't know. I hear this before, but coming out of it, I'm like, oh yeah, this is totally, I can do anything now when it comes to a business. If I can be part of this solution,
Yeah.
I wasn't the solution. Being part of the solution, being part of the team, walking away with that knowledge that, yeah, this can happen and we can execute and we can have the success and do the high fives at the end. Yeah, I can do anything anywhere.
Yeah.
No big deal.
I love the confidence that it's built. But you said something there that was really interesting is, I've seen that before. How often do you hear from people saying, yeah, we can get your inventories down, we can do this, we can do that? And because I think one of the things we often run into is, yeah, we've been told we can do that. And we've seen companies actually able to make some differences in it. But as you said, it just bounces back again.
Exactly.
There's no sustainability. What in your mind made a difference that this thing just stuck with the business and you were able to just keep doing more and more and better and better?
The training, first of all, well documented, and it was always something that we could refer back to. And it was very clear cut. It brought a lot of people that were eager to learn more, and we gave them the opportunity to say, hey, here, we're going to give you a world-class education, absolutely for free. We're going to show you the best business practices within the ERP system, and they absorbed it, and they ran with it. So that was part one of the success, is that we had people that were engaged, and the engagement only happened because it came from the top down. Mm-hmm. We had the CEO, our operations, and myself. We're saying, this is what we're going to do. This is how we're going to do it, and we're going to get some help. And we met weekly afterwards to talk about, during the whole process, to talk, through what's our challenges. Is something not working? How can we make it better? A lot of communication, and that's really what made it stick, and it changed our culture. So that we had this idea that, yeah, we want to learn more. We want to do it this way because we know this is the easier way. Yeah. Once you figure out something the easy way, you were doing it. If you're doing something the hard way,
right?
And now you found an easier way, I guarantee you're not going back to the hard way.
That's right. So isn't it sad, though, to think that most companies are told that they can have all these benefits when they implement SAP or whatever ERP, right? And there's a sense that because you put in this technology, you will have all these benefits. And then I think our statistics show that 90+% of companies actually never really get the benefits that they expected to get out of it. Like, why do you think that's the case?
Eager salesman? No. No, it all comes down to the sales pitch. If you look at the people that are making the decision on the ERP decision or process, they're high up. They're not boots on the ground, and they don't have all the information. They're not there saying if you got a guy that's on the ground talking, he'll say, well, how do I do that? And then that could lead you down a totally different conversation with the group that's trying to sell you your ERP system. So one, the decision is happening at a higher level. And then when it gets put in, if you don't have everybody brought up to speed and trained well and understand exactly what they're going to do, rather than just having it like, this is how you put a PO in versus this is why we're putting it in like this. This is why we're choosing to use scheduling agreements versus blanket PO, and explain the meaning behind everything. That's where things get lost, because it's so easy to say, yeah, we're going to dump this ERP system in, right, and it's going to happen over the next 18 months. We're going to show you the transactions, how to transaction, right. That's easy.
And it's sad, right? Because the system can actually do it. You've now experienced the benefit that it can actually do, but it's somehow when it goes in, it falls short of all of that.
That's that last 20%.
That's that last 20% we talked about earlier, right? Yeah. If you don't know what you don't know, if you don't have that expertise to push it through,
right,
So that touches another point, the people, right? Businesses are made up of people, processes are made up of people. Everything we do is around the people. How big a impact do you believe the people's mindsets play a role in how well an implementation or even an optimization
It's
goes?
everything.
It's everything.
At the end of the day, it's everything. Because those are people that, if you talk about your, even you could put in a whole new ERP system, right down to the accounting clerk, the person that has to put the invoices in or somehow get them into the system. If they don't buy into it, those invoices don't get it. So you have to not only get the people that are using it day in, day out, you got to get people that are just even remotely part of it. Because if you got somebody out in the warehouse that has to key something in and they don't buy into the whole process, that's a missing link and it fails right there.
And they have to see the benefit to them and to the business, not just
Absolutely.
one of the two pieces of the puzzle, right? They need to see both.
Oh, yeah.
And often when you put in a big ERP, it takes away the first part, right? There's no benefit to me. I'm working harder, I'm doing more, I get home later, this is tedious. Maybe the business benefits, but I don't. Now we know that's not necessarily true either yet. But
Right.
how do we get them to buy into the idea that, hang on, if they could learn how to use it better, automate more things, right? Really drive the rules to drive the results, if you want. How do we get them on our side to think of it in that way and then actually start jumping into it and have almost a curiosity to want to do better and learn more?
Right. So that's really a difficult challenge because you're talking about change, first of all.
Right.
Change management's tough, especially if you're in an established company with an established ERP and they changed out the ERP, or even if you're trying to um, upgrade your ERP system or trying to bring in an education team. When it comes to me personally, when I'm motivating a team, I make it really clear. When it comes to a project, and I tell everybody that reports to me that a project has to do one of three things. It's either got to make my life easier, or it's got to make me more money, or it's got to give me a killer ad to my resume. Because if it doesn't hit at least one of those three, it's not doing me any really good. So when you talk about change, if you really think about it, it is making your life easier eventually. And it is possibly going to make you more money because it's going to give you a skill set that's not being taught somewhere else.
Mm-hmm.
And then, of course, the killer resume ad, because you'd be able to say, hey, look, I was part of this retooling or implementation of an ERP system, and I was able to do all this and participate in reducing inventory or participate in increasing revenues. So it's about telling the person what it's going to do for them, just not financially, but what it can do to make their lives easier or help them with their career. And if those three don't really motivate a person, not a lot's going to motivate them.
Is there an example that you can recall where somebody engaged in that whole reveal process and learned something about the system, was able to really engage in a way that they saw massive benefit to themselves, either in saving time or getting home early or whatever? Is there a particular story that comes to mind that you remember?
Well, there's actually quite a few. So talking about Reveal, talking about the project that we worked on, if you look at the purchasing group as a whole, who were always inundated with a older system on an older process where they walked in the morning and they went to the printer and they would have a stack of printouts from the printer, probably like 200-300 pages, and that was what they were supposed to deal with for the day. Those were the shortages, or those were the things that were supposed to be bought. That was their process. As they walked up, basically killed a tree every day, brought this stack of paperwork over to their desk, tried to get through it as much as possible. End of the day, they leave. Still half the stack is still there, but then they have to put it off to the side because another stack would be coming. Fast forward to the new process, just go up to a monitor, pick out which your exceptions, your red lights, yellow lights, see what you need to do, click through the most important stuff, and then no more printouts, no more having to do that necessarily. That's really,
that's transformative.
yeah,
That changes people's lives.
Yeah, it makes their lives a lot easier. It's difficult at times for people to move from holding it on the paper to looking at something on a monitor, but
And just to be clear, when they were printing out these pieces of paper, they were using SAP at that time.
It was SAP.
It wasn't like this old legacy system. And they were running SAP. They just didn't know how to use it effectively, right?
Yeah, it was highly customized SAP, customized in the form of Z reports, which, they have their benefits. Not everything's perfect, but it was very heavily customized in a perfect situation with limited parts, the manual system might work, but once you add some capacity to it, it's just like pouring gas on a fire. It just go flame up on you. So, it was a big change for everybody.
I want to take it up a level, if you don't mind, again, just generally speaking, so obviously we talked a little bit about inventory and time savings of people. These are all hugely value add. But you said something earlier, something like, if it doesn't make me money or more money, right? So from a business perspective, that's our EBITDA, right? That's our net profit. That's what we'd really drive to. And as a CFO, I mean, you've honed in on that. That's what we need to improve because that's shareholder value. That's how we pay bonuses, et cetera, et cetera. When you think of, what Reveal did to the organization you were with at the time when you were working through this process, how did it translate to increased EBITDA for you?
Quite a bit. Where we were spending, I'll give you a really good example. Inventory is not free. And if you don't have the money in the bank, you got to go out and borrow it on a revolver. Right. And we had several millions of dollars sitting on a revolver. Now, even though, at the time, interest rates were not, as high, but, if you take it upon my, not so long ago, if I was in the old system, I'd have to have, $10 million.
Right.
To support
just interest.
Just $10 million in loan.
Yeah.
And then the interest for that, which would be, 800,000, give or take, or whatever. And that takes away from that use of cash takes away from us doing other things. It takes away from us going out and getting another salesman. Well, can't do it because we got to use this cash to pay this interest. And though using that, if you were judging yourself by EBITDA, you say, oh, don't worry about it. We're judging ourselves after interest. And I'm like, oh, no, hold on a second. Would you rather give the bank, $1 million a year in interest, or would you rather go invest that in an additional sales force that can generate you more net new business? That's where it comes down to is you don't want to waste your money, not waste your money. Well, use your money on interest when you don't need to if you buy more inventory than you need to carry.
And if you improving inventory turns, again, you're kind of driving productivity, right? You're using the investment you've made better, right?
Right.
How does that translate to profitability?
Yeah, it's the first thing right off the bat. More inventory, more space you need.
Right.
Okay.
More holding costs.
More holding costs. We had a remote warehouse that we had to fill. So right off the bat, more leasing expense to hold inventory that you weren't using.
Right.
That was that. I think if anything that would bug me the most is writing a check for more leased warehouse for product that we're just sitting on it. Okay, right. Well, why can't that be sitting at a vendor? Right. And we'll call them up when we need it, or it'll show up.
Have enough, right?
Yeah, because we already have enough.
And then things like expediting and transportation costs, like if you don't have control over the process, right?
Right.
You're always rushing, you're always bringing things in, you're always reactive.
Yeah, and vendors love expedite because, I'm going to slap an expedite fee on that. Right. And since we're only doing 5 instead of a run of 100, well, it's going to be at a higher cost. Where if you planned it out with a scheduling agreement, say, I'm going to take all of these, but in these, cutoffs or these call-offs, then you're going to get it at the lower price right when you need it versus at the accelerated price because, oh yeah, I have a problem today and my vendors go fix it for me, but for a price.
So we often run into executives, specifically CFOs, that typically have this mindset that says it's a value cost mindset. Like, if can I spend $1 to save 10? That's a value mindset.
Mhm.
Versus, oh, I still have to spend $1. Even if I could save, I'm not going to spend the one. And it's a very closed mindset versus open mindset a little bit. And I
Sure.
know this may come over a little aggressively for some of the listeners, but in reality, that's true. That's a
Yeah.
very risk averse kind of mindset. What do you say to the company or to the person who says, I'm just not going to spend the $1?
Why are you in business? I mean, business is risk.
Yeah.
And you have to spend your money wisely. If you want to hold on to it, well, you better have a really good investment fund that you're putting it in. And if that's what your taste is, then why are you in business? You should be, an investment fund. You have to, money sitting in the bank. Yeah, it's great, but I'd rather have it, sitting in
Working
the
for you.
right spots. All right. So, I'm always interested in the biggest challenge, or who's the person that you struggle with most to convince that Reveal has got the right solution for you.
I would say to you, it does vary based on cost value mindset, depending on who's the one who has to make that decision. It doesn't always fall on the CFO's shoulders. It often falls on the COO's shoulders and sometimes even the CEO. And of course, if the spend's too much, it goes all the way to the board.
Right.
And it's all that risk versus reward mindset. But I'll tell you, I think the biggest challenge we often face is on the CFO side,
Yeah.
in the world that you live in, right?
Yeah.
It's just it's because it is money out the door, and if everybody and everything is measured on EBITDA, and you have to spend another couple millions on trying to optimize a business end to end, that's a lot of money that you may or may not get in return. Now, it's easy for us to say you're going to get the return for it because we've seen it over and over again, and we've celebrated 20 years of doing that.
Yeah. Congrats.
Thank you very much. And yeah, so companies then they get stuck in this idea that I got to spend this money, even though they don't necessarily believe it there. And we can say all day long, there is a reward, there is something at the back end, no matter how you measure it, whether it's productivity, whether it's throughput, i.e. revenue enablement,
Right.
whether it's increasing capacities to make more money or inventory, right? It could be any of the above. It really comes down to just saying, I just don't want to spend X because it's going to have a direct impact on EBITDA.
Yeah.
And it's a really tough conversation to have because there's a sense that you spend, and often, by the way, these companies have spent hundreds of millions implementing SAP,
Right.
like millions, if not hundreds of millions, right? And constantly maintaining it, constantly supporting it, the maintenance costs on top of that every year, especially for these larger conglomerates, is again millions of dollars. And just by learning how to drive this Ferrari better, being able to get it out of first gear, right, kind of move it into an automated, faster state, can radically change the business's outputs, scalability, cost effectiveness, all the good stuff we talked about. But there's a short sightedness in that. And it's about this quarter, this year,
Absolutely.
expense.
Yeah. I live in that world where, sometimes it's, why are we off this month? And then you have to explain because as the CFO, even though you didn't spend the money
Right.
per se, or even though the sales didn't drop off, you're not the sales guy. You're the guy that's answering it to the board, and they're talking to you because guess what? You're the CFO, and if you don't know what's going on, then you're not doing your job, and if you don't have an answer from the people that you talk to, then what are you really doing here? I can see that be intimidating for a lot of people to have to sit in front of the board and say, yeah, we missed our numbers. And it's hard to say you missed your numbers. It's, being the guy that has to bring the bad news,
Yeah.
or being the guy that says, yeah, we just spent $100 million and I want to spend another $2 million. That's a tough conversation, but being the CFO, you have to have those conversations. You have to be willing to, go to the bat on it. Yeah, I can see that.
Yeah. What would your recommend as a CFO, right? What would your recommendation be to somebody who has to spend 2 to save 10, yet they've just been told you've just spent 10 million or 20 million in implementing this. You got to spend more to make it really work for you. How do you help somebody like that articulate it, especially if they're driven by monthly, quarterly, yearly numbers, right? That actually impact bottom line.
Well, you got to get into the mindset that, yeah, I'm going to be here for a few more years. And so I want to put together a plan over the next 5 years. And in that plan, first of all, this is what we need to do to make up that last 20%. Once again, difficult conversation to go and tell a board that your big investment only brought you 80%. But it also can be really enlightening for everybody to realize that, yeah, we can do more. And that's what you need to bring to the table is say, hey, we went this far. We push a little bit more. We invest here wisely. And I can show you, we will get results. Right. It's proven.
Yeah.
Multiple times. There's a lot of people out there that have enjoyed the success of leveraging their ERP systems to their fullest. I shouldn't say their fullest, to like 98%. I don't think everybody takes them right up to the limit. Right. But once they get to that point, life is a lot easier for them. And it's having that transparency, having that ability to just say, okay, this is what we need to do. Explain it, in top level detail. And when I say top level detail, I mean, we're going to spend X, and over the next 5 months, we expect this to happen. Right. And you just make sure you deliver on it. Right. So if you can set up a plan, an argument that we're going to have goals, near-term results, and these milestones, and you got to do it. It's at the end of the day, you convince them that they're going to spend the money, and then you need to execute on it, and you need to have the team together to do
That's right.
it.
One of the things I often talk about, when you think of SAP, let's just use SAP specifically, we often refer to it as a Ferrari. It's a German-based system. It requires German discipline. It's very specific, but it can be a race car, right? If you put it in properly. And if you think of the journey of an organization, the OEM designs it, then it gets assembled. So it's almost like you buy the software, then you got to assemble it, you got to put it together. But that's all it's done is giving you the car.
Right.
That's it. Right? Now you at least know how to drive it around the turns easily enough. But where people struggle and where they struggle to invest is then teaching their people to become professional race drivers.
Right. That's a great analogy.
Right? Yeah. It's such a big difference. And giving me the keys to a Ferrari is definitely going to be different than giving it to Hamilton on Formula One, right? It's just a very different capability. But yet companies struggle with the idea of investing in their people because it's not tangible.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. It's a challenge. But it is still tangible if you say, okay, I'm going to spend X. You could even say that this is part of your software implementation. So you're going to put in as a fixed asset. Okay, you got something sitting on there that you can say it just doesn't disappear. You're going to amortize it over a period of time. And the results are tangible. It's just not, right. You might say, I don't have that. Let's say you spend $1 million on redoing your optimization or whatever dollar amount. Yeah, you don't have something you can walk up to and you can put an asset tag on it, but right. You do have something in your books. You do have something to show for it with better output. And your real tangible result is better bottom line performance. It's hard for some people to see that. But if you're a visionary, if you're the type of person that likes to take risk, as all business guys generally are, business people, not guys, people, you're there to take a risk for a reward. And that's part of the gig.
And that's part of the challenge, right? Because if the outcome performance is there, like Hamilton drives way faster than I would ever drive a Ferrari, as an example, his output is for sure a higher level of results, right?
Yeah.
But you got to train that person or educate them first on doing that. And that's a cost. And that's the investment piece that people struggle with. If they're able to see the faster driver, then maybe it's easier to invest.
Absolutely, yeah.
But if they don't know, they've never seen it ever before, and their own team is the one that has to, sell them that this is going to be better this time. How often have they heard that? Well, this time it'll be better. This time it'll be different.
Right.
Right? Then at some point, it falls on deaf ears to these
Right.
some of these executives.
If it's happened enough times, yeah.
Right.
Right.
So how do you change that paradigm? Because that's again a mindset of like, I don't trust my own team to be able to get there.
But I would throw that back and I'd say, how do you know you don't have the next Hamilton sitting on your team?
Yeah.
You don't know. If you're not investing in your team to find out who's the best player out there, then once again, what's the purpose of having that team? It comes in with strat planning. If you want to bring people to the next level, you have to give them a path. You have to give them the tools. And your reward is like, I'm pretty sure if you had a group of, 25 people out there that all are on the same level of skill and you trained them all, that you're going to get at least 5 of them that you're going to find out you had rock stars that you didn't know about. And that's what you're giving up.
Yeah.
You're giving up finding out who's your rock star and who's not in this whole process. And those rock stars are going to be, depending on where they are in their career, they could be there for the next 10, 15 years, taking care of your problems that you have today and the problems that you're going to have in the future.
Yeah, that's such a good point, because some of those hypos or high potentials that get discovered can make a massive difference in their own, besides all the other improvements you can get. But just people really getting it can make a radical difference.
Yeah. If you go choose to just ignore it, don't expect things to get better.
Right. Well, let's talk about tariffs. So this is obviously a real thing right now where
it's real.
It's real.
It's not going away.
Tariffs aren't going away. So at least not now.
No, at least not now.
So what do you do?
I wish I had the answer. I bet there's a lot of people that wish they had a great answer. Going into this year, there was this anticipation that there was going to be a lot of tariffs, and some people thought, well, let's stock up. Well, what are you going to do? Stock up for the next 5 years? It's not really a plan.
Right.
You don't want to invest a lot of cash in it. Obviously, if there's some product that there's some margin in it that your vendor can share with you, can share some of the cost, and you can pass some of it on to kind of keep yourself neutral. But when it all just kind of this dust settles and everything, your costs are going up one way or another.
Right.
You have to pay that. And ultimately, it's something that you got to make the decision. Do we pass that on to our customers, which is not a very attractable situation, or do you absorb it? And it all depends on how the tariffs are impacting you. It's a tough situation.
It's a tough situation
to try to negotiate. Yeah.
And I think it's also timing what makes it hard, because I think if like you and I, being business people, we tend to believe more in free markets, right?
Sure.
But this almost seems to be the opposite of a free market, right? Where you're building tariffs and you're trying to kind of tit for tat a little bit. But I have this long-term suspicion that it'll force us back to free markets, because it's the reciprocation of it is forcing either everybody's going to be paying 20% or nobody's going to be paying 20%.
Right.
It could actually have the reverse impact than it has right now, is where people just say, okay, fine, I'm not going to charge you 20% anymore, and can we reciprocate on that?
Yeah.
Is that an option?
Let's just go back with the whole concept of the tariffs. The underlying idea that that it could build American industry back up. I always refer back to the tariffs in 1983, between 83 and 88, when Harley Davidson, there was a tariff that was put in for Japanese motorcycles. Harley Davidson was I believe the last U.S.-based motorcycle company. They desperately needed help. And the government, you can Google it. It's there. It's nothing new. But the federal government came in. They put tariffs on the motorcycles coming in from Japan.
Mhm.
It allowed Harley Davidson to reorganize itself, retool it, institute just-in-time inventory. It did a lot of good for Harley Davidson. I believe, if I recall right, they were ahead of the schedule, and they actually asked that, we don't need this tariff assistant anymore. So there you have a situation where a tariff protected
Yeah.
an industry that was really
But it
needed.
also, but key to that though, it forced them to retool or gave them time to
Exactly.
retool. And
Right.
because it becomes a competitive pricing discussion,
Exactly.
right? I mean, there is a difference in a Japanese motorcycle and a Harley Davidson. I mean, clearly, it's not even comparable.
Right.
They're both motorcycles, but they're very different. And depending on your passion, you'll pick one or the other.
Right.
Now, if the one is a third of the price, maybe that sways you. But, but they actually made a difference to their business,
Absolutely.
retooled,
Yeah.
rethought about it, redesigned, whatever it took to be competitive again. And I think in many ways, that's why I say I feel like in many ways it actually recalibrates the market.
And in fact, it did.
Right.
In that situation, it did. I'm dating myself, but there was a book called In Search of Excellence. And they talked about Harley Davidson, how their practices where they would buy 2 years worth of steering wheels or handlebars, sorry. And they would hang them from the ceiling in these big hooks. And as they would use them as they came down. Well, they find out they're defective. Well, you got 1.5 years of them hanging up from the ceiling. They had problems with their engineering with the leaking, or they would have wiring that underneath the fender that was just held up there by tape. The tariff, this opportunity was given to them to revitalize their company and to make it, the great company that it is today.
Right.
It's a great example of when tariffs work great.
Yeah, it's a touchy subject for sure.
It is.